Hey everyone, welcome to the funniest courtroom drama. Let's see who snags credits and graduates smoothly. For victory, the glasses spilled the beans on Ozan and Professor X's secret. Polo was ready, yet he said nothing. Old Yang raised his hand to interrupt, demanding a switch. With glasses swapped, he instantly took on a rule, ready to overturn the prosecution's stance. He embodied his own earlier arguments, transforming from a righteous prosecutor to a tongue-twisting legend, leaving the students in the audience utterly flabbergasted. When the prosecution spoke, Polo was mute. Not unprepared, he couldn't blame Ozan. In the end, they all surrendered. The principal stood up to announce Ozan won as the prosecution threw in the towel. Case closed. Fast forward to the present, Old Yang applied to return to the crime scene to clear his name, and since Prosecutor Liu is a senior, the glasses consented to this request. On the days he passed away at 2 p.m., he called off the mock trial citing a headache and made sure to stop Professor Xu before leaving, giving him an apology. Professor Xu uninterestedly responded, using Lai Man's case to get him to shed his gown and by exposing bribery, made Old Yang take off his official hat. We owe this professor a thank, otherwise how did we gain 2 great teachers? That who speculated on behalf of the police that Professor Xu was having a drug episode, not a headache. Professor Xu left the room, casually poured drugs into his coffee, witnessed by Old Yang entering the break room. He tossed drugs on a table, mentioning the old traffic accident and showing video evidence. After seeing it, Professor Xu lowered his head. He needed to atone for his past mistakes. Upon hearing this, Old Yang was furious, snatched the drugs, poured them into coffee, and rushed to educate Professor Xu. Old Yang suddenly interrupted, telling Fat Hu to stop blabbering. He remembered he had marched into the bathroom to flush the drugs down the sink. When Professor Xu came to stop him, but fainted from low blood sugar, Old Yang returned to the living room to pour sugar into the coffee, boosting Professor X's energy. So the other party had his hair. Strangely, the sugar packet vanished, and even stranger. That day, Professor Xu looked disheveled, as if in a tassel. Old Yang stepped out and picked up something from an inconspicuous corner. He picked up a nose pad from a pair of glasses, and Fat Hu quickly demanded Xiaomo to check the surveillance footage from that day. Old Yang slowly turned around, looking like he had an inkling of who the culprit was. And guess what? This person was right at the crime scene on the morning Professor Xu died. While Old Yang was at home piecing together a jigsaw puzzle, his computer suddenly pinged with an email, and it contained a video of Professor Xu hitting someone and fleeing. The landlord told him that someone had recently come by to confirm the filming location from the video, triggering Old Yang to remember Ojan's relationship with Professor Xu. He dug out a picture from his phone, then started recalling how he brought him home. Talk about family resemblance, right? Then he remembered he brought him home. Wow, what a family reunion. He faced out Ojan's resumed photo from his phone and, upon examining it carefully, the boss nodded vigorously. Indeed, that's the young man. Ojan's aunt found him again, slapping down papers to owe her inheritance. Ojan had heard from his uncle. His aunt settled in Boston, citing her child's study abroad, found a lover, and refused to return. The uncle's murder remained at large. Rushing to grab inheritance, he wouldn't sign the agreement. At the crime scene, Xiaomo arrived with surveillance photos. The nose pad from the glasses Professor Xu wore the day of his death was intact, and Old Yang, after glancing at the photos, declared those glasses were switched. He was clear as day that Professor Xu had been wearing rimless glasses, and Professor Jin next to him confirmed this statement. They were indeed rimless. Old Yang suggested a second autopsy due to lack of brain photos, convinced of foul play, but Old Liu refused. First, Professor Xu had been buried, skewing any exhumation results. Second, an autopsy required questioning the National Search and Seizure, challenging their forensic experts. He definitely didn't want to step on any toes with that one. Plus, he'd have to ask for permission from the will. He was simply not going to speak up. Ojan's aunt approached, insisting on a second autopsy. She absolutely needed to know who killed her husband, and the underlying message was crystal clear. If it turned out that Ojan was the murderer, that inheritance would be all his. In the lobby, Paula was discussing Professor X's case, believing the key was the whereabouts of the sandbags. If they could locate them, it would validate Yang Gelotti's claims. Everyone chimed in with their thoughts. Professor Jin caught up to Vice Dean Jiang, pointing out that the public defender, Xiao Pao, was his student, and that kid couldn't even memorize the name. If he were to defend Old Yang, it would surely be a miscarriage of justice. Besides, the prosecutor was still the cold-hearted Old Liu. However, Vice Dean Jiang emphasized that, in fact, active professors couldn't possibly serve as defense lawyers at all. Professor Jin knew this, so he asked the dean to apply to the Ministry of Education. With approval, he could apply to be a special defense attorney. But Dean Jiang denied Professor Jin's request, explaining that the legislator had just caused a ruckus yesterday, so it was best to keep a distance from old Yang for now. Professor Jin felt that Professor X's death must be related to that video. A month ago, Ojan used his uncle Professor X's email password to win his mock trial. He aimed to find evidence of a deal between Professor Zhu and the hospital, but accidentally found emails deleting videos. On the day of Professor X's death, Ojan received a reply, the content showing Professor Zhu hitting someone with his car and fleeing the scene. Ojan forwarded the video to Professor Yang and then approached his uncle, asking about the 2011 traffic accident case. Professor Zhu was utterly shocked to hear this. He had absolutely not anticipated that the old case concerning Chen Feng would be dug up once again. That very day, the mountain of stress in Ojan's heart cracked apart completely when Lai Mahao appeared, looking as if he couldn't eat anything. He charged forward and punched Lai Mahao, who merely smirked and remarked that his blood was precious. But on the murder day, the glasses vanished. Back at the dorm, someone recalled seeing Ojan block everyone on X's death day.